Hi, my name is Naveen Gupta. Both of you mentioned that the two key ingredients for success in sports are focus and mental strength. Now, do you think these are hereditary traits, inborn traits, or can they be developed? Number two, if you feel they can be developed, how did you develop them in you themselves?
I think you learn by your mistakes, and when you come into international sport and you want to be successful, and I remember as a youngster, I was 20, 21 when I first started, and I thought, here I am playing international cricket, playing for my country, hey, this is great, I've made it. And then all of a sudden you start having some pretty average performances. And then you think, well, why am I not competing? Why am I not doing as well as other people? And then you start sort of thinking, well, maybe I've taken some shortcuts here. Maybe I haven't worked hard enough. Maybe, I've got to work more on my fitness, work more on my training, diet. Maybe I've got to be mentally better. Now, for me, you can have all the skills, all the talents, all the abilities, but unless you've got something here in the head which complements those things, then you're only going to be half a person. And to me, it's a whole package. And you've got to put it all together. And I felt over a period of time I got better at that. I think when you're a youngster and an amateur sports person, you tend to be very inconsistent and erratic in your performances. When I'm talking about professionalism, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about preparation and attitude and doing the right thing, the sacrifices that you've got to make, the repetition, upskilling, team player, all those sorts of things. Put the whole package together. You miss one of those elements and you're going to be lesser of a performer.
Yeah, from what I heard, it seemed almost like preparation for war, what both of you discussed about the way, everything had to be just right, the focus had to be always there, there was not a minute to lose, you had to look behind your shoulders, etc., etc. I was just wondering, what was the role of serendipity and luck in your success? Because surely there were many, well, at least a few others who were almost as good as you. That's the first part of the question.
Why are you looking at me when you said that?
All three of you. It's to all three of you. And the second part of the question is, you were great, you did all this, we really respect you. What keeps you as champions today? Because clearly you're still champions. What keeps you going as champions today? So two-part question.
Well, I'll tell you the war thing, I'm a little sensitive about that now. But no, I think that the thing is that it's, and it adds to what Sir Richard was saying, it's what comes from that is confidence. When you have a confidence, then you're a different athlete, and the confidence comes from preparation and hard work, and being ready. And luck is made in a lot of cases. I mean, because you have to be ready for it to happen. So one of the things that Sir Richard said in his speech that I totally agree. I knew what my competition did. I understood what the competition. So if I went into a race and we had rounds, for instance, I knew what everyone ran. So if I went into round one and I knew the fastest person in that round could run 10.3, then I would go deliberately run 10.29 in that heat to make sure that I got rid of all of them. And then the next round, I would know what everyone ran. So I would make sure, so I always ran fast in the rounds because I wanted to, the objective was not only to give myself the confidence, but to make sure that when they went to bed at night, the night before the race, they were thinking about, I'm gonna have to run my best ever or else I won't have a chance to win. So here I am in their head. So it really comes with preparation and confidence, and then a lot of the luck happens because you're ready. But you have to be ready for things to happen. You have to be prepared. You have to train hard and be in a situation where if the weather's bad, then you're ready and you understand that the wind is going to be blowing in your face and you've prepared for that. And instead of where everyone else only trained with the wind at their back, but you train with the wind at your face sometimes so that, hey, I understand what it is, so I can make it happen. And they think, oh, he's lucky because he got a good throw. No, because I prepared for the variable. So that's what it's about.
Go ahead.
Actually, this question is for both Carl as well as for Sir Hadlee. I can understand being very motivated to get to the world record and so on, but after you reach there and after you got to the 400th wicket, really, what keeps you motivated to get the next world record and the next benchmark that you set for yourself?
Well, maybe I can start with that one. You know, when I got to 400 test wickets to be the first bowler to do that in the history of the game, for me it was a major milestone and one of great pride, but also one of great relief. But it goes back before that. I mean, every ball I bowled was a potential wicket taker. In reality, that never happened. But over a period of time, you pick up your first wicket, then you're getting your 100th wicket, your 200th wicket, your 300th wicket. And I realised that when I got my 300th test wicket, Alan Border, LBW at the Basin Reserve, Wellington. Yeah, LB, just nipped back a bit, wonderful delivery, umpire gave him out. Hey, 300 test wickets. But then I was one of 6 people in the history of the game that had got 300 test wickets. So I became one of an elite group or a special group of people. And then I thought to myself, well, hang on, there are 5 people ahead of me. You know, whether there be 5 wickets ahead, 20 wickets, 30, 40 wickets ahead, and I just kept knocking them off one by one. And I talked about Ian Botham on 373. I got to 373. I needed one more to get to 374. And then I became the number 1 bowler in the history of the game. So to me, those little goals became very important. They were very, very powerful for me. And when you achieve a goal, it just doesn't happen in one giant step. And if I can relate that to arguably our greatest ever New Zealander, Sir Edmund Hillary, the first man to conquer Everest, he didn't get there in one giant step. He took a lot of little steps to get to the top. And you find that that is what goal setting is all about. Once you've achieved that particular goal, got to the top, you must look to find something else to keep you going. And in my case, well, I went on to 431 at 39 years of age. It was my time to bow out of the game, and I can look back and say cricket has been a wonderful part of my life. Thank you for the opportunity, and I hope that you know, I've left something for people to enjoy. So that's how I operated my particular skill and role.
And put it out there for nobody else to get.
You follow all that, Carl?
Hi. Microphone, please.
Oh, the answer. Real quickly, for me, actually, I totally agree with the same thing. But for me, I never focused on a world record. And it's probably why I never got the long jump record. But I only focused on the performance. And when I went into a meet or a competition, I focused on running the best possible race that I could run. And I wasn't sure what that time would be. I believe it or not, I didn't believe I could run 9.8 until the year I ran 9.86. So I just always thought that I could run faster, and I kept running faster, and that was it. So I don't think I ever really focused on setting a world record my entire career, just on running faster, and then they started coming.
If I can just take that up a little bit further, a lot of young people in sport will think of the end result first. And the thing is, there's a process to get to that end result. And that is the training, the preparation, the repetition, the mental, the sacrifices, the travelling, the touring, the participation in all sorts of games and tournaments and those sorts of things. And at the end of the day, end of the year, 5, 10 years down the track, you've probably got that goal. So it's the process first, not the end result.
Right. In other words, they only see us on TV, but we work when we're off.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Hi, these questions for both the champions. How hard is it to now live for the past 15, 20 years without doing what you are best at and what you love? You know, you don't get to run or play now, so what is it like
15,
now?
20 years. What?
Sorry, I might have got my mathematics wrong.
17 years for me, Carl. Does it show?
He's the youngest of the group.
It's 10, 15 is cool, but for me, and it's funny, we talked about this earlier, I loved what I did, every moment of it. I felt like I gave 100% to it all the way through. But also, from the minute I started, I realized there would be a time when I wouldn't. We have to understand that we're going to retire at an age where where most people are just hitting their stride. So I understood that the entire time. I had other ideas of things that I wanted to do the rest of my career. So for me, it was a very easy transition. I just realized that I was ready to retire, and I made that decision, and I haven't wanted to look back, haven't wanted to race again. And I found other things to take that same high and energy that I got. And so whether it's through foundation or other work that I do, but I just channeled it somewhere else. And so I think it's been very healthy for me, and I feel very fortunate about that.
I suppose when I look at my career, when I eventually decided to retire, it was a three-phase retirement. It was over a period of time. In other words, finishing county cricket, professional cricket in England in '87 to allow me longevity in Test cricket, in other words, to give me an extra few years, to play my last games in New Zealand and then go on my last tour to England in 1990 to finish where I had my first tour in effect. And it was one of great relief to have actually left the playing field and to wake up next morning pain-free, knowing that I didn't have to do it anymore. But one of the great beauties of the sport that I've been able to have loved and lived and played for all my life is that when you can't do it anymore, or perhaps more importantly, don't want to do it anymore, that you can change direction within the game, within the sport. And when I gave up playing, I was able to go into cricket commentary, to write about the game, to coach about the game. I've been involved with selection for the last 7 years, where I look after the panel of New Zealand cricket selectors. And perhaps more importantly today is to now manage our New Zealand A team. It's the next best players coming through. So to take them on tours to places like India, to Sri Lanka, to Australia, and to be with those young players to help them progress and hopefully make the international team in a period of time, hopefully a short period of time, that to me is the great thing that the sport has actually given me. Not so much when I was playing it, but what I can give back to it now.
Along with Sir Edmund Hillary, there was another Indian who was the first man on Everest, called Tenzing Norgay. Vijay, I want to know that in India, when sport bodies are in the hands of politicians and bureaucrats, are we going to produce gold medalists and champions?
Well, I think the easiest thing for me to do, since I'm not the person to answer the question, it's easy for me to pass the buck. But to address the question, we all know that it needs to be incredibly focused and very professional. And what Carl and Richard have pointed out very clearly here is that incredible amount of teamwork that goes into making an individual great, and how you can channel that focus and determination and all of the above to create your own luck. Now, Carl mentioned the issue of you're creating your own luck. I believe that you do need divine intervention to cross the hump at the very end. And irrespective of how well you've played, you're still not going to win unless you have a little bit of that divine intervention from above. And but to answer your question, I think the important thing as far as the performance is concerned of an athlete in the country, the important thing is to leave it in the hands of professionals. If my good friend Nandan was not running an incredible company like Infosys, it was someone else's hands, like you or me, we'd run it into the ground pretty quick. We're very fortunate, at least we are very fortunate in India, that he didn't compete in tennis when I was playing, because I wouldn't have been the best here. So I think it's very important to have the kind of professional attitude that business, corporate executives bring to business, as we should in sport. And we've got to treat it the same way. The unfortunate part about sport is, which we feel very strongly in India, is the fact that there are no guarantees. You can work all you want. You know, often I've told kids this, you know, we can make you into good players. I'm not quite sure we can make you win. It comes to a certain extent from within. I mean, what these two athletes have delivered on their own is them being out there on their own. They do all their homework with coaches and trainers and dietitians and a variety of other teammates. But at the end of the day, when Richard goes out to bowl, he's there by himself, up against someone with a bat. And similarly, when Carl's running, it's the same thing. So you're there by yourself, and nobody on earth can then make you win. It's just you and what it comes from within. And that's sort of the hardest part from an Indian standpoint, because we tend to, I often say this, you know, when someone asks me in England, why do Indians not have great athletes? Is there a problem? And I said, yes, it's when the British left India, they left their attitude behind as well. So it's easy for me to blame them, which is the same reason they haven't had anyone win Wimbledon since 1935. So I think we do have to get very, very professional, and I do believe in the last 10 years or so we're getting there. If 10 years ago someone had said to me that we would have a young girl in women's tennis in the top 50, or we'd have a young man driving in Formula One, or we have a young man playing on the PGA Tour in golf in the United States, or we have a young man who's a world champion in chess, you know, we all would have probably laughed, and that has come true in the last 5 years. Yes?
Question to Carl Lewis, please. Carl, you came through the system with a bunch of really talented athletes. Just to remind you of your 4 into 100 team, there was Willie Gault, Emmett King, and Calvin Smith. Now, what was the difference between you and them? I mean, you were all part of the same system, you all great athletes, all with great coaches, everything. What was the difference? Were you a better athlete, or was there something mental that separated you from them?
That was where it started. He's right. I was better looking. I crossed the line first. No, I think that there are a number of things. I mean, I felt that I was a better coach because we had different coaches. So I'm always going to say I thought my coach is the best because I can. But I always had, I guess at the end of the day, some of it's talent. Some of it is drive. I wanted to be the best I could be. I mean, there was nothing standing in my way. And even the little things about the athletes' rights, I wouldn't allow that to stand in the way because I believed in that. So I was so driven and focused on being the best that I could be that I think that really separated me from a lot of people, not everybody, but from a lot of people. And it wasn't just about in terms of just winning the competition, but changing rules, because that was important to me. So it went beyond just being a good athlete. It meant pride, because I wanted to leave something in the sport. And I know we talked earlier about the finances, but there are a lot of things that when I came into the sport, even the housing was deplorable that I refused to deal with. And we changed that, and they used to run rounds in every single competition. And I'm like, we're running 2 races 3 times a week. Everyone's dead. So we said no heat, changed to an ABC series. So there are a lot of things. I mean, I took so much pride at every level in the sport, and I was driven so hard. I think that was a difference in a lot of cases. And another thing too is that I just wasn't afraid to try things. I think most people, and I know you can attest to this, I mean, a lot of people are just afraid to take a chance. I mean, to have the nerve to even try to compete in 4 events. And most people said don't do it, so most people would be afraid to even try it. They say you can't do it, so they stop. So you have to have the nerve to try it as well. So I just wasn't afraid, and that came from my childhood, upbringing, having the confidence and the family and the support that I could fall back on. So if I did lose that day, or something happened, or it wasn't a great competition, then it wasn't because I wasn't good enough, it's because it didn't happen that day. What did you do wrong? Work hard the next time, make it better. Stay focused on what you're doing and not take it personal. One of the things, and I can probably attest to the same thing, is I didn't dislike my competitors, because my thing was that they wanted to win too. It's just that I wanted to win more than they did. It was nothing personal. I mean, everyone said I didn't hate my competitors. I mean, there was no reason to. I had no issues with them. I just didn't, I mean, when we got on that track, whether they were my teammate that I trained every day or whether there was someone from around the world, I treated them exactly the same. But when we left, we hung out. So I was really driven to be the best that I could be, and that was a big part of it.
Yep.
Could I say this, that Carl said something very interesting. He wanted a full-time job in athletics. Well, if I have 2 kids, one of them came and told me that, I would be pretty shocked, because I wouldn't know for a fact whether she would be able to earn her living full-time. I think our kids tend to fall between 2 stools. On the one hand, they have academics. On the other hand, they have athletics. And in order to excel, I think you need to have focus, like you've said. But because of this peculiar situation where you don't know which way to go, a lot of our talent is lost. Could you answer that, please?
Yeah, well, in the United States, we have a unique situation where you can mix the two. I mean, the university system is great, and I'm not sure how the system works here. But the fortunate thing about it, the better athlete I became, the better opportunity. Because by the time I was a senior in high school, ready to select a college, hundreds of colleges were calling me and begging to give me a free scholarship. So in reality, education was important because my parents were teachers, and that's just the way it was. I mean, we were going to be educated and going to college. So the athletics became an opportunity to advance that as well. So I looked at them both as parallel situations. See, I don't see why, if someone wants to be a full-time athlete, they cannot be a student. People do it every single day in the United States, and you really don't have to make choices. And oftentimes, even people make choices in sports as kids, and you don't even know what your sport is. So I think the thing to do is to encourage them to do everything, to try everything, because they'll figure out what they want to do. And at the end of the day, if someone has a dream, you can't step on someone's dream. And if they wanted to make that choice, then you have to say, well, look, there's also a sacrifice. Yes, if you want to go on and go that direction, that's wonderful, but get something that's going to help advance that. It isn't a thing where school or education is something to fall back on. It's something to advance it. And I know college athletes in the United States that signed professional contracts with an X because they couldn't read. Well, that same person's broke and their lawyer's rich, so it just does the math. It's not about falling back on, but I think we should encourage to get to education and also advance in sports, because you're not certain where you're going to end up.
Where did you guys learn to speak like that? How much did you focus and concentrate, and how much did you practice today to outdo each other?
No. You're on.
Well, you're very kind to say that. Thank you very much. But I think if you do some television like all of us do now, and it's easy to be an armchair general sitting in the seat, but it's great. I think you get a perspective, a completely different perspective of things, and to be able to appreciate what the guys are doing out on the field. And if you're able to relate it to the audience or the viewer, I think you learn to kind of take command of the situation to a great extent. But I think we have time for just maybe one more question here.
May I?
Okay, we've got three people with their hands up here. So, okay, the gentleman in the back, please. Sorry, just. Okay, I tell you what. Let's finish with the three questions. Okay,
Yeah.
Just the three of them. Okay.
I have a very simple question.
Yes.
Yes.
Addressed to Sir Richard Hadlee.
Yes.
What is the score tonight?
Well, I was rather hoping that you'd have it up on the screen very, very soon.
We're getting
because,
there. We're getting there.
I think there's about a half hour to go before there's a potential change of innings. So
We're going to
come on, India.
Yeah, come on, India.
Okay, we have one over here.
Yeah, I guess my question's also meant to be for all the three champions, but because I was a very average cricketer and didn't play tennis, I'm going to ask Mr. Lewis. Basically, I think a lot of what we've heard from both you and Sir Richard have been a lot about what has come from within. So in other words, how did you think, and how did you deal with the situation? How did you respond? How did you manage your mind? And a lot of the things, maybe I translate that as, getting into the zone and staying there is one of the terms that I've heard used. What I'd like you to reflect on, and you've all traveled around the world, all three of you, before and after being professional athletes, how much do you see the opportunity, the technology, the coaching, what is available to an individual to flower, and how much the system encourages that? How much has that made a difference, do you believe, to your own lives as compared to what it is in other parts of the world? So can you reflect on the other side? In other words, what are the influences on you, the facilities available, the support that you got, and whether to what extent that made the difference as compared to what came from within, which of course we appreciate is very strong.
Yeah, okay, I'll deal with that quickly. I think early on in my day, certainly parent support was huge, and the odd coach. But we played as amateurs way back in the 1970s, and you had to do it yourself. Whereas today, if you look at a cricket team, you look at a rugby team, generally other sporting teams, you've got a coach, you've got a manager, assistant manager, you've got a mental skills trainer, you've got a fitness trainer, you've got a physiotherapist, you've got a media relations person. In other words, the support team, you've got 11 players in a cricket team. The support team's probably just as many, 11, in different strategic roles. And whilst they're all important and they've all got a key role to play to help a person perform, we didn't have those in our day. And basically we had to do it either individually to lift your performance or within the team that you had. And there is a danger today, in my view, that with all the support that is available, that the athlete, the cricketer, the athlete, is always looking around. Where's my physio? Where's my trainer? Where's my mental skills trainer? And there can be an over-reliance on all the support network. And I think there's a fine line between using all that support and saying, well, hang on a minute, once I cross the field of play and I'm out there in the middle, hey, I've got to put my hand up and say, I've got to do it. No one else can help me when I've got to do it in that split second. So, fine line between getting too much information, which you can with technology, with computers and these sorts of things, giving you all the information that you need. Sometimes you can overload an athlete where it complicates them. And sport generally is pretty simple. Yeah. Stick to the basics. Why complicate it?
Well, I want to say something real quick. I totally agree with that because people used to ask me all the time, did you get on the treadmill and do all the physiological testing and all that kind of stuff? And I was like, well, what would I do that for? They said, oh, to find out your lung capacity and your legs and your muscles. And I said, I knew when I got tired. I knew when I was sore. I got that part of it. So I totally agree with you on that. I think that people rely so much on that. At the end of the day, you have to just focus on competition. And probably in your career, you're probably sore half of your career. I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, in 18 years, I was sore, in like 15 years of it, one way or another. And you have to understand what's the difference in sore and injured, or how you're feeling good or bad, or what did you do right or wrong. That's something you have to figure out. And I agree with you 100%. I think athletes now rely so much on things as a crutch that they take away some of the focus on themselves.
Last question. We had the last one.
Thank you, sir. It's a privilege to hear the champions and see that the sports used to be very different in your times. Now sports is money, basically. So now I wanted to know from you how much of the sport should look towards money and it should look towards business and towards sports. Because in cricket, at least we know it's no more game. It's more of money and betting and so on. So we wanted to have your reflection where the sport should go from here, whether it should look for money or it should look for the joy of playing and winning the game. Thank you.
Quick comment from Richard first, maybe.
Well, to me, the money is the end result of performance. I get the feeling with young sports people, and I can only relate to what I see in our country, that the 18, 19, 20-year-olds see career paths in cricket, in rugby union, in rugby league, which are our main sports. And it's almost as though when they burst onto the scene that the sport actually owes them something. That's their attitude, that sport owes them something. Where, in my view, it's the other way round. They will always owe the sport or the game because the game gives you the opportunity. And it's as though with these young people, young sports people, when they burst onto the scene, they want the cars, the contracts, the endorsements, the fees, all the extras that before they've even earned it. And to me, if you put in a performance over a period of time, the rewards actually take care of themselves. So somehow I think a lot of young sports people have got it all back to front with their attitude and approach to sport. Go through the process, then get the end result.
Well, do not feel like it's alone in New Zealand. It's happening in the United States as well. The exact same thing. And I actually call it the P word because nowadays, a lot of people, it's based on potential, not performance. And in reality, sports is about performance. It's who performs the best as becomes a champion. But fortunately, there are athletes that separate themselves from that, and they're the ones that become the great champions. But unfortunately, that's happening in the United States. But I see a change because I see the athletes, a lot of the athletes that are a little bit older or people getting in there are understanding it, and they're starting to get a backlash against each other because they're taking down their sport. Because in reality, the future is going to be both. It's going to be the purity of performance because I don't know many athletes that are great athletes that are thinking about, oh, that check's coming today when they're hitting that ball or running that race or chasing it down. And then, of course, the money as well. So what I totally agree is that it has to be, if you take care of one, just like I heard 30 years ago, then everything else happens. But you have to focus on the competition.